Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robyn Mitchell, and I'm from NASA Kennedy Space Center. And I'm here this afternoon to give you a briefing on some of the exciting things we have going on out at Kennedy Space Center these days. So if you guys are interested, stick around. Hopefully have a good time for the next hour here, talking about some cool stuff. And I guess we can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start from the top level, talk a little bit about our agency. We have our mission and vision up there, talk about some of the exciting new things we're doing from an agency perspective. But for the most part, I'm guessing you guys are familiar with NASA. We've been around since 1958, and we're still going strong. I know I used to get questions after shuttle, what are you guys doing now? Are you closed? And that is absolutely not the case. We are alive and doing well and flourishing over in the Space Coast. Of course, we have our history of unique scientific and technological achievement. And just as a point of reference, we have landed people on the moon, visited every planet in the solar system, touched the sun, and solved some of the core mysteries of our home planet. How cool is that? Our most recent and exciting directive that we've gotten from headquarters is Boots on the Moon in 2024. So yes, 5 years from now, we're gonna be putting the next man and woman on the moon. That's an accelerated schedule from what we were previously targeting. So this is a very high priority within the agency right now. We're going to the moon to stay this time, and then on to Mars. Our go-forward plan to the moon is part of a much larger and sustainable campaign with many international and commercial partners. This is not just going to be flags and footprints, but an American-led establishment to maintain a sustainable human presence around the moon. So that is so new, we don't even have the template charts loaded for our moon mission yet, but I just wanted to make sure I put that out there because that's a very exciting directive that we have that we're excited to work forwards. Next, I'm going to go into Kennedy Space Center. So here's our mission and vision for Kennedy Space Center. I'm going to touch on a lot of the core competencies throughout this presentation and in the video that I play next that supports this mission and our vision about being the multi-user spaceport. So I will come on down. And okay, it's hard to top a video like that, so thank you, appreciate that. Now you're just gonna have to listen to me talk to words about the pretty pictures you just saw, so I wish I had more videos with narration for you, but On this next slide, you probably saw a flash up there in the video. At Kennedy Space Center, we have kind of 4 main agency-level programs that operate there. So I'm going to take us through those one by one. And we're going to start off with our Launch Services Program. So the Launch Service Program mission is to unite customers' capabilities and culture to explore space through unparalleled launch services. This program brings together unique technology, business, procurement, and engineering best practices, also along with some strategic planning and cutting edge that is all instrumental for the U.S. to have a dependable and secure Earth-to-space bridge that's dedicated to launching all kinds of spacecraft, sorry. I do work for NASA. So the launch vehicles that our LSP program uses are 4 of them. There's 4 of them. Whoops. Let's just go ahead and let them all come up. Sorry about that. So there are 4 main commercial launch vehicles that LSP uses. You can see Atlas, Delta, Falcon 9, and also Pegasus. Last year they had 5 successful missions. 4 of those were launched at Kennedy Space Center. 2 of them were out at Vandenberg, but these are pretty exciting missions. We had the GOES-S mission, which is revolutionizing weather forecasting, which for those of us here in Florida is near and dear to our heart during hurricane season. We also had the TESS mission, which is basically a planet hunter mission. So that's kind of exciting to go looking for exoplanets. We had the InSight mission, which is a Mars lander, which is kind of just going there to give Mars an in-depth checkup on its crust and mantle and core and provide valuable information for some of our future missions and ambitious ideas that we have about Mars. We also had the Parker Solar Probe, which is very cool. Is the one that went to touch the face of the sun and tell us all kinds of interesting data on solar activity to help us better predict major space weather events that can impact our life here on Earth. And then last but not least was the Ice Cloud, which was basically a satellite that allows scientists to measure the elevation of ice sheets and glaciers and sea ice and much more detail about our home planet in unprecedented detail. So that's all pretty exciting science missions that launched just last year. Our next program, which is the Commercial Crew Program. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties up here. This is the one that probably a lot of you know the most about and hear about. It's making a lot of news these days. This is the program that's going to put the next Americans on the space station from Kennedy Space Center. There are 2 main companies that we are working with for the Commercial Crew Program. And obviously the first one that you may have heard about is Boeing and their CST-100 Starliner. They are hoping to do an orbital test flight later this year. I think it's in the August timeframe, so they've been working really hard, meeting their program milestones and getting very close to a launch here very soon. After they do their orbital test flight, they'll have another pad abort test flight and then kind of wrap up hopefully by the end of the calendar year, an actual crewed mission to the ISS. The other company that NASA is working with for Commercial Crew is SpaceX. And probably heard about them in the news here recently as well. They did do their demonstration 1 flight in March. So that was a successful first demonstration of their Crew Dragon. They are looking forward to an in-flight abort test here coming up soon, and also hoping to do their final crewed mission to the space station later this year. So this is, we don't care whether SpaceX, Boeing, or who goes first. It's just so exciting to have astronauts launching again from Kennedy Space Center. I think it's going to light up the whole Space Coast again. So if you guys are in town later this year, please look us up and come see an awesome couple launches. Of course, at the successful conclusion of these crewed test flights, both of these companies will be certified by NASA for operational missions that will begin to the space station on a more regular basis. So that'll be an awesome capability to have back here in our backyard. Um, our next program is Exploration Ground Systems. This is kind of the nuts and bolts of Kennedy Space Center. It might not be the sexiest program we have, but is one of the most critical ones. They were established to operate all the systems and facilities that are necessary to process and launch the rockets, including their assembly and transportation. So, I mean, they get the job done for us around Kennedy Space Center. And without them, you wouldn't see all the pretty pictures and the fantastic launches. So they are a critical program that we have and probably take for granted more than we should. We also have at Kennedy Space Center the Orion and the Space Launch System. So Orion is the NASA spacecraft that is being built for a human deep space mission. So I know a lot of folks probably look at this and go, oh, you guys are going back to a capsule. Haven't you done that already? But this spacecraft features dozens of technology advancements and innovations that have been incorporated into its design. So it has crew and service modules, it has a spacecraft adapter, a revolutionary abort system that will significantly increase crew safety, and its unique life support, propulsion, and thermal protection systems in combination with other elements are really going to enable extended duration deep space missions. So we're really looking to this vehicle to take us into the future. Of course, what will the capsule launch on is our Space Launch System. So this is an advanced vehicle that provides the foundation for our human exploration beyond Earth's orbit. It will be the only rocket that can carry Orion and astronauts and large cargo to the moon in a single mission. You see there's a few block variations, so it's designed to be flexible and evolving so that it will open the possibility for new payloads, including technology and robotic scientific missions to places like the moon, Mars, Saturn, and even Jupiter. So this is going to be a very flexible rocket and Orion vehicle system that will take us into the unknown. So how do all these things come together at Kennedy Space Center? Well, one of the iconic buildings that we have is the Vehicle Assembly Building. You can practically see it from some of the tippy tops of buildings here in Orlando. And this is a picture of one of the cells inside the VAB. The VAB is divided up into 4 high bay cells. And that is actually a picture looking at all of the platforms that are designed to hug up to the rocket for all the operations and checkouts prior to rollout to the pad for launch. So this has been a work in progress for a few years as we've been getting ready for our launches. And then once it comes out of that building, what you see there is a large tower structure, our mobile launcher, on top of a crawler transporter. It will go on out to Pad B and prepare for launch from there. So these are some of the ground systems that our ground systems folks take care of for us and that are integral to the launching operations. And the crawler transporter is a very unique vehicle. I think it was featured on World's Dirtiest Jobs, a decade or so ago, with how awful it is to maintain the tracks and the oil, and it's just kind of it's a piece of art for sure if you ever get a chance to see it on a tour of Kennedy Space Center. So now I am going to move into probably what is most near and dear to people's heart here in this room, and that's our exploration, research, and technology programs. So I'm sure, as many of you know, the researchers at Kennedy Space Center have a long history of innovation as the nation's premier spaceport provides support for both government and now commercial launches, vehicles, and spacecraft. The developments by our scientists and engineers working at Kennedy and labs and our unique facilities are just critical to the future success of space exploration and really play significant roles in improving the quality of life for all Americans. So definitely our researchers are a key component of the work that goes on at Kennedy Space Center. And we have a picture here of some of our researchers working on the long-range technologies that enables the human exploration beyond Earth orbit and also reduce risks and improve affordability to future missions. So there's some on-orbit pictures of the programs that have been integral at Kennedy Space Center's technology. So with that, I am coming to the area of expertise that I'm most familiar with. So this is our transition to the world's premier multi-user spaceport. So this is the office that I work in. I started out in this office in 2011, and I actually rotated out for a brief time to implement our multi-user spaceport. So this is I'm going to tell you the story about how we got to where we are. So, as I mentioned, the office that I'm in, we consider ourselves the front door for business development. We engage in new business by focusing on our master plan, land use. We establish commercial partnerships. We have a whole group of folks that are working partnerships with commercial entities and technology, university agreements. And after we work on the agreement development, we hand that off to our spaceport integration. So those are actually the two areas that I've had firsthand experience in, is the agreement development and then the integration. Sometimes people wonder, well, how do you form these partnerships, or what is the mechanism? And I think you might have had a presentation earlier this morning on OTA, other transaction authority, which generally are Space Act agreements. So our office is responsible for crafting all of the Space Act agreements that Kennedy Space Center enters into. And when they're an agreement with a non-federal partner, they're called Space Act agreements. When we engage in partnerships with federal partners, they're interagency agreements. So I'm sure maybe some of you might be familiar with SAAs or even have them, or IAAs. And if you have one with KSC, you got to see me. So there's a plug. Okay, so I told you I was going to tell you the story of how we got there. So 8 years ago, KSC was a program-driven center. We had the space shuttle, was primarily funding all of our center capabilities, our facility. They were responsible for all of our operation and maintenance. And then the space shuttle came to an end. And as I mentioned earlier, it was not the end of Kennedy Space Center. We were primed and ready to embrace the transition. And we were ready to transform into a multi-user spaceport thanks to some groundwork laid prior to the space shuttle end. One of the ways we were able to do this was by using our master plan. It was really a good tool for us to help us plan and prepare for the transformation, and we did that. It was kind of like a three-legged plan where we made sure we continue supporting NASA missions and programs. That's our highest priority. But then we also wanted to divest without diminishing of some of the facilities that we no longer needed. So that was where we started looking to having commercial partners use some of our facilities. And then, of course, the going leaner and greener, which is just sort of a typical master planning pillar of expertise, is to try and streamline your operations and all of your operating costs. So our master plan, which was kicked off back in 2011, developed this future land use map. So we have this map that shows areas of where we expect, payload processing, launching, sustainable energy projects. So we use this map as our guide to forming new partnerships. We also have to make sure that all of our partnerships align with our master plan and fit into the map. If they don't, that's no big deal. Nothing is set in stone here. We do have a process to update the master plan, but our folks did a really good job at putting this together. We are actually just kicking off another cycle of master planning to go back and validate this and plan farther out. This plan took us to 2034. So, like I said, we do a lot of long-range planning in the background that people might not be aware of. So, and it's been exciting to see Kennedy Space Center grow against the master plan, and how, well, we were kind of like, this is where we think we'll be in 5, 10, 20 years from now, and we're not doing too bad, so hope we keep up the good work. Just as a point of reference while I'm on this chart, every year the FAA puts out a compendium of commercial space transportation information, and it was really kind of exciting to see. We have the 2017 data. We don't have 2018 yet. It might be out. I haven't seen it. But looking at the 2017 data, it showed that 15 of the 21 commercial launches were supported by the KSC multi-user spaceport, and those were all 21 launches from the United States. So, I mean, that shows that, we launched about 70% of the US launches from the Space Coast. Of course, that's between Cape Canaveral Air Force Station and Kennedy Space Center. But, and also, 45% of the global launches. So we've really recaptured a large share of the launch rate, and we're only looking at that to grow as more and more companies and partners are interested in coming and working with us. So yes, to that end, we have over, gosh, I think this slide says we have over 90 partners with 250 partnership agreements. That's probably data as of a couple months ago. There's probably a couple more in there, but like I said, this really shows the volume of partnerships and agreements that we're not only engaging in the development of, but also implementing and extending as expirations come up. So it's a busier place than some people might believe. So now I'm going to walk us through some of the key partnerships that we have. So we have the Boeing company. This was probably one of our earlier commercial partners that we worked with. They probably about, back in the 2010 timeframe, we put out a notice of availability that one of our orbiter processing facilities was going to be available soon. And as part of that official announcement, through Space Florida, eventually Boeing is utilizing one of our old processing facilities for the CST-100 Starliner manufacturing and refurbishment. So this is an interesting example of where Boeing is not only our partner for commercial crew as an official NASA program, but they're also a commercial partner at Kennedy Space Center working on the commercialization of their vehicle as well. So they're kind of dual-hatted. They have a 15-year agreement, and we certainly expect and hope that they stay around longer than that. And of course, as I mentioned, as part of the commercial crew program, they're hoping for a first flight later this year. Okay, and another high visibility partner we have is SpaceX. In 2012-13 timeframe, we went out for an announcement for proposal about Launch Complex 39A, and we did have a couple people respond to that. In the end, SpaceX was selected to enter into a 20-year property agreement for use of Pad A, and this was a unique agreement. All of them are fairly unique, but this one was kind of new to us since they were basically going to have a minimal NASA oversight within their legal boundary, so to speak, of the launch pad. And they started that agreement in 2014. They very quickly got the pad up and running into an operational shape suitable for the Falcon family of vehicles and had their first launch from there about 3 years later in 2017. And then, of course, last year we had the inaugural first Falcon Heavy launch and recently another Falcon Heavy launch. So they have certainly put the pad to good use since we were, always believed that that was the highest and best use of such a historic national asset. And SpaceX has certainly proven to care for it the way we were hoping. They, before I moved on, they are also, as I mentioned, a part of the commercial crew program, and that would be actually where astronauts will be launching from, hopefully later this year in their Dragon capsule. Another partner that we have is Blue Origin. They're out in Exploration Park, which is just outside our gates, but part of our property. So they built a large manufacturing complex out there. They completed that construction in 2017. So they are working with Space Florida for launching from the Cape Canaveral side of the river from Launch Pad 36. So they have their manufacturing up and running, and they are looking forward to a launch in the 2020 timeframe, not too distant future. So it's only going to keep getting busier and busier. Another partner we have is Lockheed Martin. They refurbished our Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Facility, High Bay. So this is where the Orion Crew module that's going to support the deep space exploration that I talked about at the beginning is being assembled and integrated and eventually launching on the SLS. So the EM1 launch is hopefully launching in about a year from now. So hopefully Orion will be flight proven in the next couple months or next few months. Okay, on to Sierra Nevada. This might be, this one looks a lot shuttle-like. So this is their Dream Chaser vehicle. They have the potential for other NASA missions under our commercial resupply to the space station. So for the past few years, SpaceX and Orbital have providing cargo missions to the space station. And in the next round of contracts for our resupply to the space station, Sierra Nevada was awarded the potential for some flights. So we're hoping to see the Dream Chaser manufacturing and first flight of them in the 2020 timeframe. So as you can see, 2020 is really building to be kind of the penultimate launch year for all of these new and exciting vehicles. So it's going to be fun to be in Brevard County. We also have our Orbital Sciences partner. We've been working with them for a few years on them actually using one of the high bays in the VAB. So, and we're been negotiating the agreement with them for that use and also the use of a mobile launch platform for them to eventually fly their Omega vehicle from Launch Pad 39B in the 2020 timeframe as well. So like I said, lots of exciting things coming. So we've been working on this agreement very hard, and we're hoping for that one to be executed in the not too distant future. And as I've mentioned briefly along the way, Space Florida is an interesting partner that we have. They are an independent district of the state of Florida, so they're not necessarily commercial, they're not necessarily federal or state government, but we partner with them a lot on some of our facilities, such as our Space Sciences Lab, over in Exploration Park. They helped with the Operations and Checkout Facility High Bay modifications for Orion. As I mentioned, they were the main agreement holder for the orbiter processing facility that Boeing is building their Starliner in. And they actually have the agreement for our shuttle, previously called Shuttle Landing Facility, and are working with a lot of potential users to use the shuttle landing facility, such as the X-37, Sierra Nevada Dream Chaser, other unmanned aircraft systems, and some research. Some of the fun things that go on out there too that not many people may be familiar with is the straight line testing, where we do have a lot of vehicles take advantage of the unique capabilities of the runway that are looking for greener fuel systems and aerodynamics to kind of fall into the leaner and greener initiative that we have. So we see some fancy cars and trucks racing up and down the runway every now and then. We also have out in our exploration park is a OneWeb Satellite. So this is a high volume satellite manufacturing facility that's gonna be building equipment for government and commercial customers. So they're kind of like right across the street from the big Blue Origin facility that got built. So this is a pretty new partner that came on board last year. So we're looking forward to seeing lots of exciting manufacturing to go on there as well. And last but not least, I think I'm on that chart, is we have Florida Power and Light. And this one we like to highlight because this is an enhanced use lease for renewable energy. And the master plan map that I showed you earlier has an area where we specifically carved out for projects such as this. So we have an EUL with them for almost 500 acres of land where they have about a 75 megawatt solar facility, and that the agreement for that really just got signed about right in the December timeframe before the holidays, so they are busy breaking ground and clearing land and getting ready to set up that solar farm. So yes, that was the last of the partners I was gonna highlight. Now I just wanted to go through, some of the reasons people like to partner with KSC is that we are in a prime location. We're kind of geographically located here in the middle of Florida, so it's close to the parks and the recreation and folks that you guys enjoy. We're not out in the middle of somewhere like we used to be, but from a technical perspective, besides being a great place to live, we have, the optimal launch site for launches to suborbital and beyond. We also have road, rail, air, sea, and space. So we can pretty much accept transports from any mode of transportation you can practically think of at this point. Maybe not drone drop yet. We have kind of issues with that. But we also have secured perimeters, which is kind of a plus and a minus. Sometimes that's a good thing for our commercial folks, but it also requires security clearances and badging that people might not expect. So that is one of the topics we always talk about with our partners up front, is the security requirements that is expected of everybody to be on Kennedy Space Center. And we do have controlled airspace that we work very closely with on the FAA for activities that go on out there. We also have an extremely experienced workforce. So, like I said, NASA's been around for a long time, and we have over 50 years of operational experience. We have extensive engineering and testing capabilities, science and technology expertise, and then we also have the folks in my group, which do some of the agreement development, and then the integration and the management and the daily operations of our spaceport. We also have unique assets. I've talked about some of the unique assets that we have already commercial partners operating in, but we have land available for development, labs and test facilities. We have launch and landing, vertical and horizontal infrastructure. We also have testing and engineering capabilities, and of course, the research and technology that we have touched on before. Wanted to just put out there, when I say we have land available, we have what is called a notice of availability that is in FedBizOps. It is pretty much continuously out there. I think we've had it out there now for about 3 or 4 years. This one will expire in June, but the expectation is that we will probably continue to just renew that based on the posture at Kennedy Space Center. And what that notice of availability is for commercial partners to respond to and propose using land at Kennedy Space Center for any of the categories that you see there. So of course, people can't just come out and say, "Ooh, KSC is a cool place, we just want to build widgets," or something like that. It does have to fit in with our mission and our master plan, but this is an avenue for folks to engage with us in the possibility of building their own facilities within our secure perimeter. Of course, the caveat there is we always retain ownership of the land while partners development and do any improvements to the site, but we try to let partners be as flexible and autonomous as possible, and look forward to seeing more new fancy buildings joining us out there at the launch complex. So on that, I will close with a little picture of what we like to call our rocket garden between Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. This is kind of the suite of rockets that are either have launched or will be launching in the not too distant future. So it's kind of a really exciting, unique array of government and commercial vehicles. And it's just so exciting to think of all the different payloads and technologies that these vehicles will be carrying when they launch from right here in the backyard in the next few years. And like I said, our launch rate is just steadily increasing every year. And we're getting to the point where we're almost starting to say, "Oh my God, when do we have to say uncle?" And we can't launch every week, every day. I mean, we have some expectations that we want to get to the point where there's multiple launches per day, 2 and 24 hours, almost airport-like operations, only launch vehicle operations, to really open up and enable access for the commercial partners and government to space and low Earth orbit, because that really is kind of a key piece to taking technology forward for lots of folks. I wish I had a cool video to end on. I probably could have picked one to throw in here, but in conclusion, I'll just put up the contact information. This is our partnerships website. It's public-facing. It has a ton of good information about the technology and capabilities and facilities that we have at Kennedy Space Center available for partnerships. It also has right there online a form that you can fill out and send to KSC Partnerships, which actually comes to myself and Tom and a few other folks. So there are real people behind that email. It's just a good way for us to not get overwhelmed with the requests that we receive. So please, if any of you are interested in partnerships and agreements with KSC, go to the website, check us out, drop us a note, or feel free to give me a ring. I'd be more than happy to give out my contact information as well as part of the presentation. So with that, I will get quiet, and if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free. If not, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.